Hello, everybody. This is Sir Monch of Surigao del Norte State University. And in this lecture video, we continue our learning journey related to Eduk 6, building and enhancing new literacies across the curriculum. We have completed 4 chapters already. The first one was about 21st century learning and 21st century skills. Chapter 2 was about literacy in a changing world. Chapters 3 and 4 were about new literacies. In this chapter, the first chapter of the final coverage, we try to go deeper. This is more of pedagogy, pedagogical principles. We try to cover how to integrate the teaching of literacies across the curriculum. In this case, as you can see, we call this the universal design for learning literacies across the curriculum. In essence, this chapter will cover the UDL framework. Okay, just a bit of review. So, tung chapter 2 particularly, we covered a dominant theory in the understanding of new literacies that was two-level new literacies theory. If you remember, that theory assumes that every new digital tool that is created or because of the internet as a digital force na ay bag-o nga literacy practice nga mahimugso. Okay? So, kung always ga-change ang, let's say, information and communication technology tools na ay mga bag-o in the corner, naapoy mga mangsulpot na mga bag-o na new literacy practices. And for that reason, ang literacy or new literacies, no, gina-describe siya, if you remember, deictic, kay ga-change siya from time to time. Mosabay siya sa pag-progress ng technologies, mga bag-o ng mga technological inventions. And gi-emphasize pod ng theory na it should come with critical literacies. Pasabot ana, ang critical thinking is very important kay kinahanglan ang mga learners or even professionals kabalo mo criticize, kabalo mo evaluate ng mga information, ng mga media na ilang ma-encounter brought about by new technological or new literacy practices. And another important point that was shared was that with every new literacy practice, it's important to understand that the nature of that literacy practice is always multimodal. Diha pod gi-expand ang kana nga perspective ng multiliteracies theory na kadtong second theory that we covered in chapter 2 na ang multiliteracy theory assumes that new literacy practice involves decoding, understanding, consuming, or even producing meaning that is consistent with the 5 semiotic systems, katong linguistic, audio, visual, kinesthetic, movement, gestural, unsa to nga term, gestural, and spatial. Now, also in chapter 3, as I mentioned a while ago, you worked on various literacies or literacy practices. So there were 8 in total, and some of them included um, global awareness and multicultural literacies, digital literacies, information and media literacies, AI literacies, social literacies, financial literacies, and more. Okay. Now, the next question is, the next challenge is unsaon man pag-design ng lessons para masuportaan ang pag-learn ng mga new literacies. Okay? And probably I have raised this question several times already in class. If you remember, ang final performance task na inyong pagabuhaton is lesson plan, mag-craft mo lesson plan wherein um, intentionally, consciously nag-integrate gyud mo sa pagtudlo, no? Dili lang ng I mean sa pag-teach ng content, sa pag-teach ng subject matter, sa pag-teach ng required na mga topics, imo pod ginasuportaan ang pag-learn ng new literacies. Karon we have arrived at this point where we try to answer unsaon man na pagbuhat, unsaon man na pag-achieve. Now, the answer to that question is the purpose of this chapter 5, wherein I envision every one of you to internalize better this so-called UDL, the Universal Design of Learning. Because when you are able to absorb or appreciate this model, universal design of learning, you can design learning experiences that support the learning of new literacies across the curriculum, whatever the subject area. Okay? So karon, without further ado, what is UDL? Universal Design for Learning, as you can see here, is an educational framework that aims to create inclusive and accessible learning environments by accommodating diverse needs, preferences, and abilities of learners. Actually, mas particular or mas relevant ning nga framework sa special education kay ingon pa we are meant to not discriminate. We are meant to address the needs of all learners, regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of their differences in terms of personalities, in terms of abilities, prior learning, and so on. No two learners are the same, right? Kada learners na ay uniqueness. So, unsaon man nimo pag-accommodate ang tanan learners, mabuhat ra na nimo if according to this framework, the universal design for learning is mag-create kag learning experience na very inclusive and very accessible. Later on, you will realize na perfect pod ni nga model para masuportaan ang multiliteracies or new literacies. Okay? Now, this framework emphasizes three main principles. First, providing multiple means of representation. Second, providing multiple means of action and expression. And third, providing multiple means of engagement. Now, ato ning isa-isahon, unsa ning tulo ka main principles. Again, in essence, or the bottom line is, we ought as educators to design lessons, learning experiences that are accessible to all, regardless of student backgrounds. That is what UDL means. Okay? Now, the first principle, providing multiple means of representation. The idea here is we understand, no? Especially sa inyong case, sa Eduk 1, Eduk 2, and other professional education subjects na iyon ang natapos, you already have an understanding that learners differ in the ways that they perceive and comprehend information that is presented to them. Na ay uban, na ay mga disabilities, obviously. Ang uban di kakita, ang uban di ka bati kaayo, mga na ay hearing impairment. So sa mga dili kakita na ay visual impairment. So kaning mga differences in abilities, no? Posible mag-create siya ng challenge for you as a teacher unsaon sila na makasabay sa learning experiences na imong i-create. Okay? So, accordingly, kung mo apply kita ng first principle of UDL, providing multiple means of representation, we can accommodate them actually maskin unsa pa na ilang differences in abilities or apay uban differences in learning styles and other individual differences factors. And also, as covered in chapter 2, meanings can be represented in various ways. Pwede meaning through audio, meaning through gestures, meaning through language, meaning through spatial arrangement, and meaning through kaning pictures, colors. Okay? So, in that sense, given that reality na meanings can be represented in various ways and that learners differ in the way they appreciate or digest information, the truth is there is not one way of representation that will be optimal for all learners. But ipasabot, walay solid na single na most effective na pag-represent ng information in class. So na ay mga teachers for example na ang ilang classroom is for the whole semester ang makita ng estudyante or students are just exposed to linguistic meaning kay ang ila makita puro nakasulat sa Manila paper or puro mga words na tag-flash diha sa PowerPoint presentation. Now, in that case laong pa, that would be murag that would be considered as speaking to just one way of representing knowledge. Gina-represent lang ang knowledge through sa kanang let's say linguistic na semiotic system, right? And according to UDL, medyo maglisod kapag achieve sa design of learning that is most accessible to all. Kay isa ra gud ka semiotic system imong gina-follow as if naa kay assumption diha nga everybody likes to read text. Amo? So, karon the first principle of UDL tells us that it's important to provide multimodal text. Kanang multimedia presentations nga present ang lima, if not lima, more than one more than two na mga semiotic systems. Multimodal texts for students' consumption is essential. If you remember in chapter 2, I told you that the literacy practices have changed already. Dili na siya reading and writing, but consuming and producing multimodal texts. So dire mas makita nato ang relevance. If we were to design experiences nga universal, if we were to design lessons na supportive sa new literacies? Obvious ang answer. We represent content, we share content, we deliver knowledge to our students, or we expose them with information through multimodal text. Okay? I hope that's clear. Next principle, providing multiple means of action and representation. Here, the terms already suggest na ang ato estudyante dapat na ay action or ga-express sila. Okay? Ga-storya sila, ga-share sila ng ideas. And dapat na ay multiple means or multiple ways of action, of behavior, multiple ways of communicating. What's the logic? The logic is learners differ in the ways that they can navigate a learning environment and express what they know. For example, there are individuals with significant movement impairments, those who have language barriers, kay let's say, hina siya English, mas abtik siya sa Bisaya, and so on and so forth. Some may be able to express themselves well through multimodal text. Di na sila maka-elaborate, mas ma-express nila ilang kaugalingon kung mag-vlog sila, kung mag-TikTok video sila, kung mag-IG story sila, and so on and so forth. Instead of the usual classroom recitations or writing essays. Now, given this reality, pasabot ani for all educators, especially kamo as future educators, remember, there is not one way of action and expression that will be optimal for all students. As educators, we are somehow obliged or encouraged na kung naatay ipabuhat sa atong students, actions, naatay ipa-express sa atong students na mga knowledge or information, dapat daghay pa maagi. Dili lang kung isa balik-balik na activity. Okay? Now, it suggests that providing options for action and expression is essential, multiple options, and giving of different opportunities for production of multimodal texts and contribution in literacy practices are necessary. Okay? So again, mabalik na sad nato ang multimodality ng literacy practices. Kay dili naman jud strictly ma-define ang literacy sa reading, writing, arithmetic na ana jud siya sa concept of multimodality. So in short, kung kita magpa-task or magpa-activity, it's always encouraged to be or to require our students to produce something that is multimodal and to contribute actively in real life literacy practices. Okay. So for example, I remember na ay mga teachers nga magpabuhat sila infographic. So kung magbuhat sila infographic, that is already a multimodal text, 'di ba? Na ay pag-represent ng meaning through pictures, pag-represent ng meaning through um, kaning language. So duha na. So that is multimodal. And then, aside sa pagbuhat ng infographic, ipapost pa na siya sa ilang social media pages. So, kung si estudyante, gipa-post pa sa iyang social media page, that is already contribution. Kibali, wala lang natapos sa pag-produce. Gipa contribute pagajud sa everyday literacy practices. Sometimes ang contribution in literacy practices may be in the form of just presenting in class. And ang uban, as I mentioned, pwede i-present dito sa real world na mga settings or practices such as social media pages. Now, the last principle, providing multiple means of engagement. The logic here is when we motivate our students, we motivate them in various ways. Okay? We shouldn't assume na naay isa ka single na pamaagi ng pag-motivate ng ato students. Instead, we provide multiple options. Kay the logic is learners differ in the ways in which they can be engaged. They can be motivated to learn. Okay? Daghay pamaagi para si students, ang mga students mahimong invested sa ilang ma-learn. Okay? Or sa chapter na they're about to learn. Okay? There are various sources that can influence this. For example, neurology, lain-lain na brain structure, na lain-lain na previous experiences, no? Culture, personal relevance, subjectivity, and this is where I emphasize, tungod kay ako na pod ni probably na balik-balik sa klase, na no learner comes to class with empty heads, na ang mga learners gyud all the time, always, they bring with them prior learning. Naana sila'y biases, naana sila'y superstitions, naana sila'y existing knowledge na more likely, or let's say in some cases, mga mali na ilang mga na-learn. So, ang trabaho ni teacher, isa sa iyang mga trabaho from a pedagogical perspective is dapat makabalo siya unsa maning inyong prior learning, unsa maning mga knowledge na inyong na-learn before this day. Okay? So, karon in reality, therefore, if we were to aim for a universal design of learning, there is not one way of engagement that will be optimal for all learners in all contexts. Dapat, kung magpa-motivate kita, mag-motivate kita in many ways. Okay? Providing multiple options for motivation or engagement is essential. Tasks and games that establish relevance and activate prior knowledge are important. Okay? Karon, I hope those three principles are clear. Now, if we put these three principles together, these three principles actually give us the basic structure of a lesson plan that supports learning of new literacies. In what way? If you remember, naghatag ko sa inyo ng basic lesson plan structure. Kung wala ko kahatag, mao ni ang lesson plan structure na inyong i-follow when you do your own lesson plan. The first part, topic. Second, intended learning outcomes. Next part, learning resources. And then procedure. Ang procedure, simple lang siya. Before the lesson proper, mao ni ang mga pang-motivate na mga tasks, right? During the lesson proper, mao ni ang actual the teaching learning activities where students are exposed to content to develop and deepen their understanding, right? And the third one, the third part of the procedure is after the lesson proper, wherein students are made to engage or to perform assessment tasks. And then after that, magbutang mo og prepared by and references. Now, if we put that side by side with the UDL principles, inyong makita na katong third principle na atong na-share, providing multiple means of engagement for motivation, that is the first part of the procedure of any lesson plan. Okay? So karon, unsay giingon sa UDL principle, kinahanglan multiple options of engagement. So karon unsaon man nimo pag-judge? Posible i-judge na nimo sa isa ka lesson plan. Kung ang lesson plan is good for 1 week, medyo weird gyud or medyo incorrect, no? Or improper, medyo inappropriate kung ang iyang motivational task balik-balik every day. Okay? Dapat multiple ang pamaagi. So kung let's say naa siya'y opening activity na kani, let's say magpa-drawing, dapat next chapter magpahimo na siya bisag tula para ra lamang ma-activate ang prior learning. Next na chapter, kuan na sab siya unsa na sabto na mga task, let's say magpahimo na sab siya ng script for a role play. Kana, that's how you adhere to the to that principle of providing multiple means of engagement. Okay? So again, dili siya necessary na isa ka lesson plan, duha ka activity or tulo ka activity para lang sa motivation. Pwede ra isa. Ang logic diha is dili lamang siya magbalik-balik every chapter. Okay? Okay, for example, balik mo sa inyong experiences. Nakatry ba mo anang teacher before na every time na ay new chapter sa klase, ang iyang motivational task is balik-balik, question and answer only. Moingon ra siya, um, what can you say about this concept which is our topic for this chapter? So next chapter na sab, the same script ang iyang gamit. Okay, so we have now moved on to this next chapter. So what can you say about this concept for this chapter? Tapos sunod na sab na chapter, balik-balik, balik-balik. So walay bag-o. So ga-violate siya sa UDL nga principle of providing multiple options of engagement. Okay? Next, kanang during the lesson proper, as I mentioned a while ago, ang purpose anang during is for your students to develop and deepen comprehension or understanding of concepts. Karon, para ma-develop, para ma-deepen ang comprehension ng concepts, unsay giingon sa UDL, dapat mag-provide ng multiple means of representation. Dili lang kung puro yaw-yaw, puro yaw-yaw. Kay again, kung puro ra lecture, 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 or reporting, 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 ang emphasis is only just on one semiotic system, linguistic. Right? Swerte kung na ay visual aid. So at least duha. The message is mag-provide ng multiple means of representation. I-represent ang knowledge, i-represent ang concepts, ang theories in several semiotic systems. That's why we mentioned na it's best to use multimodal texts. Okay? Now, the third one here, after the lesson proper, magbuhat na siya ng assessment tasks. I-assess na kung na-attain ba ang intended learning outcomes. Now, that aligns to the last UDL principle, providing multiple means of action and representation. Okay? So, ug sa plural pod siya, tasks, assessment tasks. So, kung si teacher balik-balik ra pod siya nga sa may iyang assessment task, nasigara siya pa identification, multiple choice, identification, multiple choice, posible mag-suffer si teacher ng criticism na wala siya nag-adhere sa pag-provide ng multiple means of action and expression. Okay? So, I hope you get the point now. Karon, actually ini, probably ijuning question. So, you might have something like this in your mind na, okay sir, gets kami na para masuportaan ang pag-develop ng new literacies, kinahanglan mag-provide kami ng not just one, but multiple options, multiple means of action and expression, representation, and engagement. Now, these are big terms. These are big words. Unsa man joy pinaka-specific or actionable steps that we can do, that we can perform to adhere to every UDL principle. In short, the question, what specific and actionable steps can be implemented so that we can be faithful to the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning? Okay? The answer is maones siya. In case you don't know, naatay kaninga table Idyo makita jud na naka-organize sa kaning green one, providing multiple means of engagement. Ang focus ana is the why of learning. Again, because that is more on how to motivate our students. Kanang before pa nimo siya i-expose sa content, before pa let's say for example, before ka magpahiyaw-yaw ng verb, kung verb imong topic, dili man gayud dire-diretso mag-istorya kag verb. Dapat naasad kay pang-motivate asa, focus on emotions para ma-prepare ang interest ng imo learners sa imo i-topic nga verb, right? So karon, the specific actions are maoning provide options for recruiting interest na ay tulo diha ka buttons, optimize individual choice, optimize relevance, value, and authenticity, and minimize threats and distractions. Naapay another, providing options for sustaining effort and persistence, and so on and so forth. And lastly, providing options for self-regulations, which means promoting expectations and beliefs that optimize motivation, and so on and so forth. Pwede na kamo na ini ang magbasa. Okay? But I will ask you about this. So I invite you to read and go to the exact source. This is a clickable link. I will give this link to you in our group chat. Be sure to check this out. Okay? Be sure to read all of the framework. Ijusad makita sa middle na column, providing multiple means of representation focuses on unsa may ilang i-learn. Okay? Giunsa man pag-represent ang knowledge. So, provide options for perception. Okay? So maotong dapat na sila makita, ma-feel as much as possible. Provide options for language and symbols, and provide options for comprehension. And then, ang last one, provide multiple means of action and expression, maotong sa more on the assessment tasks. Provide options for physical action. So wala na tay choice, active learning naman gajud ang gina-emphasize karon. So ang principle mismo, ang pinakauna is dapat na agad yung physical action na ilang buhaton. Okay? And then provide options for expression and communication, and provide options for executive function. Karon ako ni i-demonstrate sa inyo. Kay atong i-click ini na link kay actually this is an interactive learning resource. Kung ako ni i-click, we will go to, wait lang ha, i-click na ko ni, and we will be directed to this website. I hope this is visible to you, kaning UDL guidelines. So, mauni ang link lang, udlguidelines.cast.org. So, inyong makita diha, mauni itong akong gisend sa inyo nga sa slide na akong gigamit. So karon idyo makita diri nga actually clickable ini sila na mga terms. So for example, you need more elaboration about kaning recruiting interest. Unsa may pasabot ani sir kaning optimize individual choice and autonomy, part of providing options for recruiting interest. I-click na nimo. Kung imo na i-click, mao ni ijang pasabot. Provide learners with as much discretion and autonomy as possible by providing choices in such things as level of challenge and so on and so forth. So kagets na ka, sige atras ka. Karon, ya ka kasabot na sir, unsa maning optimized access to tools and assistive technologies 4.2. Pwede sa da nimo i-click and naa siya elaboration. Pasabot ana, provide alternate keyboard commands for mouse action and so on and so forth. Okay? Atras na pod ka. Again, every item here in the framework is clickable para mas maasistahan kamo. And again, I urge you to explore the whole framework because, again, this is not only useful for special education, this is also useful for supporting multiliteracies or teaching of new literacies. Okay? So, mauna siya. Mobalik ta sa slide. Okay? So, mauna si Ja. Now, let's have some practice. Case breakdown. We have here a case, global citizenship in a values education class. A values education teacher integrates UDL principles to foster global citizenship and intercultural understanding. Lessons explore universal values such as empathy, respect, and cooperation, while highlighting the cultural diversity within the Philippines and the world. The teacher uses storytelling, multimedia resources, and cultural artifacts to engage students with different learning preferences. Students participate in collaborative activities like creating a class mural, celebrating diversity, or organizing a cultural exchange event. Assessments include written reflections, group projects, and peer feedback. Okay. Karon, the question is, how have the UDL principles been applied in this case? Okay. Makita ba ninyo sa case asa diri ang pag-provide ni teacher ng multiple means of engagement? Asa diri ang pag-provide ni teacher ng multiple means of representation and multiple means of action and expression. Now, ako ni i-demonstrate. Ang kaning pink na text, this would be providing multiple means of engagement. The teacher uses storytelling, appeal na ang multimedia resources, cultural artifacts to engage students with different learning experiences. Karon, giunsa man ni teacher pag-represent ang knowledge. Gi-represent niya using multimedia resources and cultural artifacts. And unsa may iyang gibuhat para ang mga estudyante maka-act and maka-express ng ilang knowledge, gipa-participate sa collaborative activities, class mural, organizing cultural exchange event, written reflection, group project, peer feedback. Okay? So, I hope that's clear. Karon, para inyong mas ma-appreciate, pwede pa ini siya ma-convert pagyud into a lesson plan. So karon ako siyang gi-convert into a lesson plan using the case na atong gi-provide in the previous slide. The lesson title or the topic would be Exploring Universal Values Through Cultural Diversity. Posible ang iyang intended learning outcomes are at the end of the lesson, grade 10 students, ako nag-assume rakan ko nga grade 10 ha, grade 10 students are able to first explain universal values such as empathy, respect, and cooperation through a reflection paper and appreciate cultural diversity through a class mural and cultural exchange presentations. So sa idyo makita, I hope idyo nakita nga atong gi-apply pag-ayo ang ABC format. A, klaro ang audience. B, klaro ang behavior. C, klaro ang condition for demonstrating the expected behavior. So sa first item, reflection paper is the condition for explaining the universal values. In the second ILO, kaning class mural and cultural exchange presentations are the conditions for demonstrating the behavior appreciate cultural diversity. Okay? Now, next part sa lesson plan, learning resources. So, mauni atong listings of learning resources, collections of short stories and real-life examples. Second, multimedia resources. Third, cultural artifacts, and fourth, materials for creative expressions. So kung ato pod i-visualize unsay pwede nga nahitabo nga procedure before the lesson proper, gibuhat ni teacher posible students were made to listen to a compelling story via multimedia presentation that introduces important concepts. So in this case, daghay multiple means of engagement. Si student maskin tuod na mati lang sa story, but because it used it uses multimedia presentation, there was multimodality of experience. Okay? Second, during lesson proper, unsay gibuhat ng teacher during the lesson teaching proper, students listen to an introduction to universal values, brief lecture with PPT slides, so mauna tong multimedia resources, and exploring cultural diversity via multimedia resources and cultural artifacts. Okay? So balik ta dire, so ang representation, cultural artifacts, and multimedia resources. And then after the lesson proper, each student writes a brief reflection on what they learned about empathy, respect, and cooperation. And then letter B, last assessment task. Students work in groups for two major assessment tasks, creating a class mural and planning a cultural exchange event to be presented using PPT prepared by references, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So I hope inyo nakita how we were able to establish from a case, so case of global citizenship in a values education class, nag-identify tadiha how the UDL principles have been applied and we're able to build a lesson plan na visualize nato kung giunsa or unsay itsura ng lesson plan ni teacher from that case. Okay? Karon para mas ma-appreciate pagajud ninyo, mag-showcase ko diri ng constructive alignment. Kay mauni ang isa sa mga concepts na akong gi-emphasize pod sa klase na every time magbuhat tag lesson plan, dapat aligned ang tulo ka elemento ng lesson plan. First element, intended learning outcomes. Second element, teaching learning activities. Third element, assessment tasks. So first, unsay giingon nga ILO, explain universal values through a reflection paper. Unsay gibuhat nga teaching learning activity, gi-introduce daw ang universal values through a brief lecture. Klaro na diri sa lesson plan. Karon, giunsa man pag-assess. So diri sa ILO nag-mention na daan na reflection paper ang pamaagi sa pag-explain. So makita po diri sa assessment task, each student writes a brief reflection on what they learned about empathy, respect, and cooperation. Is there constructive alignment? The answer is obviously yes. Okay. Second showcase of constructive alignment is with the second ILO. Unsa giingon sa second ILO, mo appreciate daw ng cultural diversity through two conditions, class mural and cultural exchange presentations. Karon, unsa may gibuhat ni teacher para ma-develop and ma-deepen ang understanding, gipa-explore ang cultural diversity via multimedia resources and cultural artifacts. And tung nag-assessment task na, unsa may iyang gipabuhat, divide students into groups for two major activities, creating a class mural and planning a cultural exchange event to be presented using PPT. So pag-present ana, for sure, pangutan ni teacher ng mga questions para i-elaborate and that way ma-achieve na ang kaning verb nga appreciate. Okay? So I hope I was able to showcase um kadtong mga lessons nato before na akong ginasingit on how to prepare lesson plans, how to achieve constructive alignment, and this time na anagajud mo'y exact framework na sumbanan para mahimong sensitive to the development or support of new literacies, that is engagement, representation, actions, and expression. Okay? Now, the challenge for you is, karon, do it yourself. I'll give you several cases. Case one, you may take a screenshot of this. Critical thinking and problem solving in a middle school math class. You may read this later. how have been how have the UDL principles been applied in this case? Another case two, media literacy in a middle school social studies class. Case three, environmental awareness in a high school science class. Case four, digital literacy. Case five, financial literacy. Case six, communication skills. Case seven, creativity and innovation. And case eight, leadership and teamwork. Okay, so again, these are for your exercises, for your practice. Okay, so nag-demonstrate na ta na atay example nga gi-workout nato para inyo pong mahimo nga reference. Okay, now here is a little bit more difficult na challenge. Atong i-reverse ang task. Mag-build ng case. So, kung tagaan mo case, ipa-breakdown sa inyo, ipa-analyze, case analysis, that would be called case breakdown. Karon, kung mag-create na mo ng case mismo, that would be case building. A synthesis. Karon, we can do that through reversing the task. This is the challenge task, case building. First, balik sa new literacies assigned to your group atong chapters 3 and 4. Unsa may na-assign sa inyo, global awareness and multicultural literacies, digital literacies, technological literacies, information and media literacies, AI literacies, and so on and so forth. Karon, after that, visit a local elementary or high school and look for a teacher, any major, any subject, who intentionally integrates the new literacies assigned to your group. Katong literacies na inyong gitrabaho last time. Now, interview the teacher after seeking full informed consent, meaning gipasabot ninyo si teacher para asa ang interview. So you tell them for academic purposes only. If they like to hide their faces, please edit out or hide their faces in your videos. Interview them about how he or she applies the three UDL principles in teaching a certain topic with integration sa literacy na inyong trabahoon or gitrabaho before. Okay? And now, using all information that you could collect from the teacher, magbuhat mo case description. Pareho sa katong walo ka cases or sa case na atong gi-workout nga example. And then, build a lesson plan with labels and explanations of how the three UDL principles are applied. Okay? So kung sa una nagkuha ra mo lesson plan without any explaining, karon mag-interview mo teacher and using the information na inyong makuha, magbuhat mo lesson plan. Okay? So I advise you na kamoy mag-create ng lesson plan base sa information na inyong makolekt. Kaya kung magkuha mo lesson plan, remember, ang mga lesson plans na existing karon sa many teachers, murag dili jud aligned taraw sa atong gi-envision nga template or structure. Okay? Labaw na ning UDL. Okay? Naayupan, maayo, pero for, for learning, para for experience, kamoy magbuhat ng lesson plan. Pareho sa atong gi-demonstrate po na example earlier. And lastly, showcase constructive alignment. So katong table na klaro ang tulo ka elements connected. Okay? So this is difficult. This is a difficult challenge. That's why it's called a challenge task. Okay? And that's all for this lecture video. Thank you so much for listening. I hope na amoy na learn today.